G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Sport Talk Podcast. And today we have a massive guest. We have a 346 gamer for Hawthorn and Brisbane, a four-time premiership player, three as captain, three-time All-Australian, two-time Peter Crooms medal, two-time Norm Smith, and he's been called by Bruce McAvaney, Mr. September. Please welcome Luke Hodge to Sport Talk Podcast.
G'day, Blake. How are you, mate?
Yeah, it's good. First things first. How's quarantine going in Perth? Day 1 or 2?
Day four.
Yep.
So, look, it's going okay. I'm just fortunate enough that I can get over to commentate the game. So, the Queensland to WA borders is okay at the moment. So, fingers crossed it gets to very low and I can walk out. But it's been pretty good, mate. Pretty cruisy. I've got 4 kids at home, so luckily mum's at home giving my wife a hand. But I'm actually sleeping quite well without the 4 kids jumping on me anyway.
So you growing up in Colac, was footy your main priority in a country town? You also showed promise as a cricketer.
I think it's like anyway. Growing up in a country town, you spend most of the time with your mates. So it was pretty much whatever my mates did, I did. So whether it was cricket, footy, basketball, that's pretty much what we did. And I probably should have spent a little bit more time on my schoolwork, but I learned that a little bit later. But yeah, I love basketball, love cricket, love footy. But I guess my main passion early was probably cricket. It wasn't until I got a little bit older and realised that I can't bowl fast anymore and I'm a terrible bat that I had to turn to football.
Yeah. So in 2001, how does it feel being in the greatest drafts in football history? You had Judd, Ablett, Swan, Stevie Johnson, Mitchell, to name a few. How was that for you?
I guess back then you don't really know. I guess when we're going through, people were sort of saying throughout the process that it was a pretty handy draft. But now you sort of sit back and you mention the guys that you just did. You kind of feel a bit lucky that you're able to go through and compete against those guys for your whole career. But I guess when I first just started playing, it was just about just playing football. As we sort of said before, I was a country kid. I'd made the move from Colac to Melbourne as a 17-year-old kid, and probably physically I was ready for football, but mentally I probably wasn't. But yeah, it took a little bit for me to get used to the AFL system and what you can and can't do to play good, consistent football. But enjoyed the process.
Yeah. So you played your first couple games in 2002, but when Clarko got to the club in 2004, Buddy, Lewis and Ruffy also got on board. Did you see potential that the side that Hawthorn had when Clarko arrived?
Yeah, it was weird, mate. Like, when I first got there, the Hawks had just come off a prelim final loss to Essendon. I think Trent Crode was about 5-10 minutes to go. He hit the post, which would have put him in front. And then all of a sudden they lost that, and then they ended up trading Crody to Fremantle to get the number 1 pick, and that's how Mitch, myself, and Daniel Elstone all got to Hawthorn, because Hawthorn actually finished 3rd or 4th that year. So that was a weird process, and I did feel that there was a lot of Hawthorn supporters weren't too flash hot that they traded out Crody for us, but in time they ended up coming around. But the first few years were tough. I didn't make finals, and then obviously Swabby got sacked, and they appointed an unknown coach who was coaching Central Districts over in Adelaide, and Alistair Clarkson, and he came in with a bit of a bang and was very strict and disciplined, and it was exactly what we needed as a team that probably lacked a little bit of that at the time, but things turned out pretty well.
Yeah. So it must have been a huge privilege playing for Australia in the international rules game against Ireland in 2005.
Yeah, it was. I guess it was weird being 21 and had the opportunity. I was lucky enough to represent Australia in under-17s and absolutely loved the Gaelic game. And then we played that one, and that was the one where was it Chrissy Johnson who went bananas, and there was a big punch on. So I'm standing there as a 21-year-old just going, what the hell's going on here? There was fights everywhere. And I think after that, they brought in the suspension that you can get suspended at the international games if you get reported. So I think we had a few of the boys that may have roughed up a few of the Irish guys. But I was a huge honour. And I was lucky enough later in my career to, in 214 and 215 to represent Australia again and captain in 215. So it's always a massive honour when you represent either your state or your country, and to travel overseas and do that was a lot of fun and something we really enjoyed.
Yes. So 2008, it was a massive year for the Hawks, of course, winning the flag. But you were going as underdogs against a great Geelong team. What was the message Clarko put out?
I guess we were underdogs. Geelong had only lost the one game, and that was to Port Adelaide, I think round 16 or 17 that year. I guess we actually had belief because earlier that year, it was actually two days before our first son was born. We played Geelong on a Friday night, and we lost by 4 points, I think it was. And we made so many mistakes late in the game, which pretty much handed them the game. And I was one of the guys who made a lot of mistakes, and so were the senior guys. But that gave us belief that if we come up against this powerful Geelong team again, who beat Port Adelaide by 100 points the year before in the grand final, that we knew if we played good enough football and didn't ruin our opportunities like we did in the home and away game, that we were within a chance. And then it got to grand final day. Lead into the grand final, we'd probably been the team most informed. Our closest game in the previous 5 lead into the granny was 40-odd points, I think. So we believe we're full of confidence. We're a young team. We're willing to do anything to win. And then Clarko come up with this big idea before. It was an analogy of Geelong being this big, powerful shark. And he drew a big shark up on the whiteboard. And when you've got 22 young fellas in here, nervous as hell, the only person who played in a grand final before that was Stuart Dew. You're sort of sitting there going, shit, what are we going to do? We didn't know what to expect. You run out and do a warm-up, and there's 50,000 people there. We weren't getting that many people there throughout the year. So we drew up the big shark, and then you try to get the analogy of how Geelong wanted to play. They wanted to go fast off the half-back line and then flick it through the middle to their quality on ballers, Jimmy Bartel, Gary Ablett, Ling, Corey Enright, Joel Corey, all these guys, and move the ball fast into the forward line. And his analogy was, well, if a shark, how do you kill a shark? And one of the boys yelled out, well, you stop it from swimming forward. A shark drowns. It needs water going through its gills to breathe. If once you stop it or push it backwards, it dies. And he goes, that's how we're going to beat Geelong. If you stop Geelong going through the middle, if you push him backwards and you defend really well and make him go wide out to the wings, that's how we're going to beat this team. And all of a sudden, after that speech, he galvanised 22 blokes to go out there, and we had a lot of guys that played well on the day. Geelong probably didn't take their opportunities. But yeah, we got away with one of the wins that probably people didn't think we should have. But
yeah,
we'll always say that Geelong were the best team on that year, but we were the best team on the day.
Yes, that's the old saying. So out of your 4 premierships, what would you say would be the best one?
Oh mate, they're all good. You can't. It's like asking a father what kid did you love the most. You love them all. They're all brings back so much memories. But I guess the 2 that remain that stick in my mind is probably the 08 and the 14. More so the fact that 08, no one gave us that chance, as we just sort of spoke about, and to do it for the first time with a bunch of guys that would do anything for each other was unreal. And then probably 14, just the fact on a personal front, it was my 250th game. I was able to run through the banner with my 2 oldest boys. The other 2 hadn't come at that stage. And being able to run through the banner, hold your kids, be a part of it. And then after the game, you can do a lap of honour with them. They're on the ground holding the trophies and with the confetti. Bringing that family part of it along was probably the other reason why I probably enjoy that one as well.
Yeah, and the funny side of things in the 2014 grand final, what about that kiss you gave to Buddy, that famous one?
To be honest, mate, I don't know what I was thinking. It's obviously you play with Bud we played Bud for 7 or 8 years, and he's a bloody good teammate. We won 2 flags, and we had some really good times with him. But me and him had a couple of run-ins on the footy field. That was the first year he left. In round 8, he ran through. We played Sydney up at West Sydney, I think it was, Olympic Stadium, and Bud come off the line when there was no Mitchell, there was no Saul, there was no myself. So there was 3 of the older guys who'd always been in Clarko's team. None of the senior guys were in there, and Bud come off the line and ran through Jordan Lewis, and no one went up and got stuck into him. And then he dropped Grant Birchall later in the game, and I think that annoyed Clarko. So when we played him later in the year, he wanted us to run past Bud, and he said there's a little point on your elbow. If you can run past Bud and just put into his bicep or tricep, just to know that we're around and he's not going to have an easy run at the football. Don't punch him, don't do anything silly, but just let him know. And I ran past Bud late in the game, and I got him right in the bicep and actually caught him. And he sent a message to me that night saying I got him that good that he couldn't hold his beer that night. And then the last part of it was, I'm going to get you back. So throughout the grand final, he ran into me a couple of times just to remind me about that corky I gave him. But it was the kiss was during the third quarter. We'd run into each other a couple of times at the end of the second quarter, early in the third, and he was sort of chesting me like that. And then I pecked him on the cheek. He took it the right way. He had a smile on his face. I had a smile. We sort of ran off. And then all of a sudden, I heard 100,000 people start pissing themselves laughing. And I'm like, oh, shit. They've caught that on camera. Next time I'll look up at the big screen, and they've replayed it 2 or 3 times. I'm like, shit. And Clarko hates people being smartasses, and I wasn't being a smartass. But I've looked across, and the runner started running out. So I piss bolted to the other side of the ground just so I didn't get dragged. But it ended up, Clarko didn't see it. He just sent him runner out to give another message. But yeah, it was all fun and games, and Bud took it the right way, which was nice.
He's one of a kind, isn't he, buddy?
What'd you say? He's one of a kind.
Yeah, he's one of a kind.
Without a doubt. Someone who is 6'5", is that athletic, he's that fast, can bend over and pick the ball up at full pelt. Look at the 2 goals he kicked against Essendon, running down the wing with poor old Hooker chasing him, and starting from 50. Like he's one of the best that has played our game. Definitely one of the best that I've played against and played with. So it's good to be a part of his career. So hopefully next year he can kick that 1,000th goal.
Yes. Do you want him round 1 next year, maybe against your former side at the SCG?
I just want to be there to watch it. I don't think this is ever going to happen again. Especially the way the game's going. It's a lot more defensive. Team players just can't kick a bag like they used to be able to. And as soon as someone gets 2 or 3, they'll drop someone back in front of them. So I'll be aiming to trying to get to that game. Hopefully COVID is working for us all back then, and we can fly to different places. But whether I'm working for Channel 7 or I'm sitting in the stand having a beer watching, I'll want to go and watch that.
So 4 flags and 2 Norm Smiths. How would you sum up your time at Hawthorn?
I guess we did have a lot of success, which was nice. But people always say it must have been easy. Always celebrate, but we went through so many tough times as well. It's funny to think back at the end of 2011, 2012, we were getting touted as chokers because we lost to Collingwood in the prelim when we were up at 3/4 time when Luke Ball kicked that snap. We lost to Sydney in the 2012 grand final when we went through on top and everyone thought we were going to win it. So there were some down times. We missed the 2009 finals after we won the 2008. So look, we had a lot of tough times as the Hawthorn Footy Club, but I think that's what built our resilience. Understanding the disappointments made sure that we really, really enjoyed the successful times and made sure we were desperate enough to do the right things when we needed to.
Yeah. So a footy bombshell happened with you deciding to go to the Lions. What was the reason behind that?
I guess initially I was, how old was I? I think I was 33 at the time. And I'd got to the stage where Sam Mitchell and Jordan Lewis had left the year before. And I realised that the club were at a different phase. They were looking to make a change and look for the youth coming through. And that year we had Grant Birchall, Ben Stratton and James Frawley all injured. And I was playing down in defence with Hardwick, Burton and Sicily, like 3 young guys coming through. I thought that when the older guys come back from injury, that's just going to kick one of the younger guys out. And I was content. I didn't think Hawthorn were going to win a flag with a 33-year-old sitting across the half-back line, stealing games from a younger guy who could be playing that position. So spoke to Clarko and said, mate, I think it's time. I'd organised with Channel 7 that I was ready to move on into the commentary side of football. And then when I finished off the season reasonably good with the Hawks and ended up coming third in the BNF. And I think Fags was sort of watching and sent a couple of messages just sort of saying that the old body looks okay. The warm weather up here would help it. But I think the main thing that got me was he said, we've got a lot of younger players because Brisbane had a lot of people leave between 24 and 29 in that window. He goes, we've got a lot of young people with a lot of potential, but we need a few leaders on field to help them develop and give them feedback right then and there. And he knew how much I enjoyed the leadership role at Hawthorn. And one thing went to another, and my wife was keen for the move, and we moved up, and we're very comfortable up in Brisbane. I can't see us moving back for a very long time.
Yeah, of course. Speaking about Fags, how was he as a coach to you?
Yeah, he was really good. Like he was, I guess people sort of say a father figure, a mentor. He was probably someone who I worked the closest with. There were so many people at Hawthorn, Andrew Russell, Clark, obviously, and the players and a few other coaches as well. But Fags was someone who, when I was captain, he was my sort of go-to person to get to the coaches and to Clarko. With the leadership meetings, he sat on pretty much every leadership meeting that I had as a coach, and then Clarko joined it post 2012. Sorry, as a captain, Clarko joined it post 2012. So I was always bouncing things off Fags, and we got a really good coach-player relationship. So when he sort of asked me to go up there, I don't think, if it wasn't for Fags, there's no way I would have contemplated coming out of retirement, or there's no way I would have made the move to Brisbane. I think that shows the trust and the faith that I have in him, and to bring my family and uproot my family from Melbourne to Brisbane. I think that shows the faith and the trust that I had in him and where he was trying to push the lines.
Yeah. We surprised Clarko was axed at the Hawks, and how do you see Sam Mitchell as a coach?
Oh, mate, with football these days, I'm not surprised of anything. So much things happen, and footy's very wild these days. Things happen out of the blue with no notice. Am I surprised? A little bit, but I also feel that Hawthorn it was a lose-lose situation for them. If they had kept Clarko and they said, Mitch, well, you can go for your Collingwood job, and Collingwood pick up Sam Mitchell, and then they win a flag in 3 years, how many media and how many Hawthorn people will be saying, you just let go? Everyone's touted Mitch as one of the best coaches for the future. How could you let him go? You sent him to West Coast, you brought him back. He was there for the taking, and you let him go to Collingwood. They decided to keep him, say to Clarko, 17 years has been excellent, but we're looking for the new trend coming through. And the media have jumped on about getting rid of a four-time premiership coach. So I think they were in a lose-lose situation. I just hope that Mitch gets a clean run at it as far as the media and supporters and people. Just, if they don't get off to a great start, give him a bit of a chance to get his game style and get his culture set around the footy club before they start going hard at him.
Yeah. So recently, of course, you touched on with the Channel 7 job. Will you be covering the grand final next week?
Yeah. So I did the grand final last year up in Brisbane with Channel 7, and I was lucky enough to do before the game, halftime and all that, when the Doggies beat Sydney in 2016. Channel 7 got me on them when I was still playing. So this will be the third grand final as a commentator, and I've really enjoyed it. So not sure who's going to be not sure who's going to be playing there, but 60,000 people at a packed stadium. It's going to be flat out.
Yeah. So what's your predictions for this week? Melbourne versus Geelong, of course, tomorrow. Who do you see winning, and where do you see the game won?
Oh, mate, this is a tough one, because every time I pick someone, their supporters, the losers, the team I don't pick, their supporters abuse me. So I feel for Melbourne. I reckon Melbourne have done everything right, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go on and win at the football they've played. But for some reason, Geelong have just stuck with me. They've got senior players that I feel that they'll know what to do at the important times. So I think Geelong will push through, and I've actually tipped Geelong for the flag. I saw them against Port Adelaide, and Port Adelaide shut them down at Adelaide Oval. They were so good, Port Adelaide, just not letting Geelong own the ball with their kick mark style and switch and maintain possession. But Optus Oval is a bigger ground, and I just think that Geelong will be able to work their ball movement and get it played. And then when you got stars like Dangerfield, Selwood and the likes through the middle, I think they'll have enough power.
Yeah. And of course, the Port Adelaide Bulldogs game. Who do you see winning that? And Why?
Probably Port Adelaide. Just being at home, the Dogs have been so impressive and they've fought through. They beat Essendon convincingly down at Tassie. They just snuck over the line against the Lions in a very close game. But I just think Port Adelaide at home, they've done nothing wrong, and I think they've got to go in as favourites. So I've got a Port Geelong grand final, the same as 2007, and I'm thinking it's going to be the same result. I think Geelong will get over the top, but I'm terrible at tipping, and probably I'll put the jinx on both of those sides.
And the 2021 premiers?
Geelong. Yeah, I reckon Geelong will take over Port Adelaide in the grand final. But as I said, I haven't tipped the Premier for a long time. So I tipped Geelong last year and they lost. I tipped Collingwood the year before. They lost. So we'll see how they go.
Yeah. All right, that pretty much wraps up the show. Just want to say big thanks to Hodgie for joining on the podcast. And also good luck with the Channel 7 job. And hopefully there's a packed out crowd for you at Optus.
Perfect, mate. Thank you very much for your time. And by the looks of it, you're a very keen Richmond supporter.
Yes.
I know that you've enjoyed your football over the last 3 or 4 years.
I have, yes. Thank you, Hodgie.
Cheers, mate. Have a good one.
Will do.